ask. Okay, and then I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so you should see a slide that says managing emotional eating during the holidays. Do you all see that? Yep, I got a thumbs up from Claudia. Thank you, Marianne. Awesome. Okay, well, welcome. It's so great to have you here. Let me get everything situated. I'm actually really excited. I'm really excited to be here and sharing this information with you because I know, like, for me in the past, this has been like the holidays come around and it's always been such like drama, right? So much drama with like, oh, there's going to be all these parties, all these events or gatherings with just more food and more drink. And it's usually food that we have once a year. And then we feel like, oh, well, if I don't have it now, I'm never going to have it. So there's that scarcity around there. There's more drinking. If you drink, there's opportunities for more alcoholic beverages or even like just beverages in general. I was actually talking with our friends. We have good friends who are our neighbors, and we were over at their house last night, and we're talking about Christmas, like when we were younger, and they're talking about like it was like the cranberry and like either Sprite or 7-Up, and then the orange sherbet in it, and you'd have it in a big punch bowl when you were a kid. Like that was like such a good thing. So I want you to be able to head into the holidays and really kind of like alleviate some of that stress that we have, that worry about, am I going to gain weight? That worry about, am I going to overeat? That worry of an anxiety around food. And so we're diving into how to manage emotional eating through the holidays. So what we're going to be talking about is I'm going to cover like what is emotional eating, because I think first, in order to understand emotional eating during the holidays, we need to understand what is emotional eating, like in the first place. And why do we do this? Why do we turn to food when emotions run high? And then most importantly, how can we reduce emotional eating, especially around the holidays? So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Kisa Amaro. I am a certified integrative health coach, and I help clients reduce their emotional eating and cravings without deprivation or complicated meal plans so they can show up fully in their life and their career. And I really became interested in health coaching when I was fed up with being on diet after diet since I was 16. Really without seeing that sustainable result. It's like I'd be on a diet, I'd lose some weight, and then I would feel deprived and I would gain the weight. Try a new diet, deprive myself, lose some weight, cravings, eat more food, gain weight. So it was like this cycle, this yo-yo dieting cycle. And I was really tired, I was confused, and I was still struggling with massive cravings and emotional eating. And my weight would fluctuate with every diet I tried. And I knew there had to be another way, right? There just had to. Like, I'm like thinking of like, can I live the rest of my life like this, just struggling on diet after diet after diet? So through my coaching and teaching, I take the focus off of what we're eating and onto how we're thinking about food and your body to help you create a healthy relationship with food and with yourself. I'm also the host of the Lose Your Cravings podcast, where I take a mindful approach to reducing cravings. I work with clients one-on-one and in small groups. I teach yoga, and I'm a retreat speaker. And in my free time, I enjoy hiking, surfing, reading, practicing yoga, and spending time with my family and my dog, Bella. So let's dive into some emotional eating. Okay, so if we want to understand emotional eating, we first need to understand like what is an emotion. And I know this is my own experience, and I feel like this is a common experience. It may not be for you, but it may be that many of us grew up not really understanding what an emotion is, nor did we learn the proper ways to allow and process them. as children, we often got scolded if we expressed an emotion, especially a negative one. Like if we got mad or angry or upset, right? We were told to stop crying, don't be a baby, it's not that bad, buck up, wipe that look off your face, many more. And I'm sure that you can recall phrases that like well-meaning family members or teachers told you when you were young that had that same meaning. So we're essentially told to suppress our emotions and not to show them, especially the negative ones, the hard ones. So what is an emotion? An emotion is just a vibration in your body. That's it. That's all it is. You have hormones in your body that release chemicals that cause a vibration or a sensation in your body. So every emotion we can feel in our body. Some of them are comfortable and some of them are uncomfortable. Now, a great example of this is going on a roller coaster ride. Like I think of like going to Six Flags, or if you've gone to like an amusement park or a fair, right? You're standing in line, you're getting closer and closer to the front of the line. What do you feel in your stomach? Right? What is that sensation or that vibration in your stomach? Most of us feel some sort of sensation in our stomach, right? Maybe it's butterflies, a queasy feeling, a tightness. This is usually a mixture of excitement, fear, anticipation, anxiety, right? We feel something. So like that is an emotion, right? When we feel that thing in our stomach, we're standing in line for a roller coaster, we're getting closer, we feel something going on in our stomach, that's the emotion. It's the sensation you feel in your body. And like I said, some emotions are comfortable and some are uncomfortable. So usually we don't mind feeling those comfortable emotions like joy, happiness, gratitude, peace, right? Those are good feelings. Like I love feeling gratitude. When I am like grateful for things and I really feel that gratitude, it feels so good, right? Peace, that feels good. Joy feels good. But what happens when we feel an uncomfortable emotion like stress, anxiety, anger, or irritation? We try and get away from it as quickly as possible, right? We're like, no, like I don't want this, right? And that's our cue for emotional eating. Right? So what is emotional eating? So emotional eating is when we use food to cope with our emotions rather than to satisfy a physical hunger. It's reaching for that extra snack or dessert when we feel stressed, sad, even bored, right? Rather than because we're genuinely hungry. We have that physical hunger. So we're trying to get away from the discomfort that we are experiencing. So we reach for food, right? Especially food that is high in sugar, salt, fat, and carbohydrates. Now, emotional eating can feel very impulsive and out of control. And it usually leaves you feeling guilty about the food you ate. Like we never, dive into a pint of ice cream and afterwards we're like, oh, I feel really good now. Like I'm not stressed anymore, right? Usually there's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I ate all that. And then there's all the thoughts about, am I going to gain weight? Like, do I have to work out? I have to work out extra tomorrow, or I have to spend more time on the treadmill or more time at the gym to burn those calories. And then we still feel the stress, right? The stress doesn't go away. It just covers it up, okay? So what are some signs of emotional eating? Because I know when I first started getting into this work, I did not realize I was an emotional eater. I had no clue. Okay? I literally thought that my body just could not control itself from eating ice cream, from eating pizza, from eating bread, cinnamon rolls, granola, trail mix. So when we look at like what are the signs of emotional eating, and especially like how is it different from that physical hunger, we can differentiate, we can recognize, and then from there we can see like what is the solution. Okay. So do you ever find yourself maybe craving something very specific? Like chocolate, pizza, chips, maybe something salty, something crunchy, when you're not physically hungry. Like I just ate dinner half hour ago or 15 minutes ago, and now I just want something sweet. I just need something sweet. Okay. And it has to be like that one specific thing. It has to be something sweet, or it has to be chocolate, or it has to be ice cream, or it has to be crunchy. Like it has to be that thing, and nothing else will do. So this is one key sign of emotional eating. It's like I am craving something very specific, whether it's a specific food, a specific taste, a specific texture, and nothing else will do. Nothing else will satisfy that. Okay. Other signs include using food as a reward, eating in response to stress. I had a stressful day. I come home and I open up the pantry, I have a bag of chips, or I get the chips out and I just eat out of the bag. Continuing to eat even after you're full, right? I am usually like after dinner, like this happened to me a lot. I had a nice dinner. I was physically full. However, then I would go eat a pint of ice cream, and then maybe some cinnamon rolls, and then maybe something else, and then some pretzels. It's like going back and forth from that salty to sweet. I was not physically hungry, right? Like I had just fed myself some good food. And so continuing to eat after you're physically full, and even when you're uncomfortably full, right? That's a sign of emotional eating. Also, when it feels out of control, right? You feel very out of control, almost like the food is controlling you. And it's just like your hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth, right? You're just bringing that food and like, I can't control this. It's just happening to me, right? And this feeling like food is the only answer or antidote, okay? So I want you to take a moment to notice if you engage in emotional eating. And what signs do you notice in your eating behaviors? Okay, so do you engage? And you can just think to yourself, you can write it down. It's totally up to you, however whatever works best for you. Do I engage in emotional eating? And as you answer this, Claudia knows very well. We've worked together before, and she's in our Nourish Mind Body community. But we always look at this from a place of curiosity and compassion, not from a place of judgment. It's not like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm emotionally eating and it's the worst thing ever. Can't believe I'm doing it. It's like, oh, interesting. Yes, I notice that I am emotionally eating. I notice that after dinner, I continue to eat past full, and I actually get very uncomfortable in my stomach. I notice that when I get home from work, I want something salty, and it has to be something salty. Okay. So notice, do I eat emotionally? Am I an emotional eater? And what signs do you notice in your eating behaviors that signify emotional eating? I'll give you a moment to think about that. I'm going to mute this. We have someone at the door. Hold on. Okay. My daughter, they don't have school today because election day, and her friend just came over. So had to let him in. She also made me this beautiful drawing that says, happy morning.
Oh my
I just
God.
left it. I'm like, I can't erase it when she's here. Okay. So just noticing what the signs are of your emotional eating, because that's the really the first step is that recognition and noticing. Like, am I an emotional eater? And I wasn't, because I didn't know I was eating emotionally. And therefore, I was trying all these other things that were not working for me because I was not addressing my emotional eating. Right? I thought I just needed to be stricter. I thought I needed more willpower. I thought I needed to restrict more food or different food. I need to be on this diet or that diet. But none of that worked. Okay. So, what triggers our emotional eating? Um, Oftentimes, I would say most people I work with, it's stress. There's some sort of stress that triggers the emotional eating, especially work, family gatherings, boredom, loneliness, and even positive emotions like the excitement during the holidays. Maybe you get really excited during the holidays and you're like, I love all these things. I want to go to all the parties. I want to try all the food. I want to do all the things. And it's part of connection. Maybe food is connection to you. So I hear that a lot from people like, I connect with food. So it can even be a time of day that triggers emotional eating, like when you get home from work or right after lunch or seeing a food logo, right? We see Starbucks logo and all of a sudden we want a vanilla latte or like whatever drink, a chai tea or something. Or it could be like a wrapper. I think of like brand wrappers, like we just had Halloween, Snickers bars. Like my daughter brought home a ton of Snickers bars. I love Snickers bars. And so that used to be a trigger for me of like, I just want to eat all the Snickers. Okay. Maybe certain Christmas music, right? We're going into Christmas music or seeing the decorations. These can all be triggers for emotional eating or just things that bring about that emotional eating. So understanding these triggers is the first step in managing them, right? So notice what triggers your emotional eating. Is it a time of day? Like you get home and maybe there's some sort of relief in home. Maybe there's some sort of discomfort at home. And so that's triggering emotional eating. Maybe it's a certain time of day. Maybe you can identify the emotion. Like, yeah, I'm just like really lonely right now, or I'm really frustrated right now, or I'm really irritated. Like we have an election day today, right? Like maybe some of us are stressed out about it. Maybe some of us aren't, but maybe that stress of just like what's going to happen, that unknown, right? It's like that unknown. So just think about what is triggering your emotional eating. Okay. So I think many of us kind of don't want to be engaging in emotional eating, but like, why do we do it? Right? Like, why do we engage? Why do we do this? Even if we're like, oh, I want to stop this, or I don't want to be overeating at night, or I don't want to like go into the holidays and just be eating like all the desserts or eating all the pumpkin pie or all this or all that and overeating it. So why do we engage in this emotional eating? So if we know that emotional eating is not the best way to cope with emotions and can really leave us feeling guilty and frustrated and even physically sick, right? We can feel it in our stomach and our digestion, then why do we do it? And one reason is our brain and the reward system within our brain. So when we're stressed and we eat, our brain's reward system gets activated. We reach for foods that are high in sugar, fat, and carbs that provide a temporary boost in these feel-good chemicals like dopamine, right? That's why when we eat high sugar foods, we get a lot of dopamine. When we eat high fat foods, we get a lot of dopamine. When we eat like very salty foods, we get a lot of dopamine. And then especially when you combine those things like salty, sweet, right? Salty, sweet, and fat. That's like trail mix. You have all those things. You got the salt, you got the sweet, and you got the fat. So it gives us this dopamine and a high amount of dopamine. And this is why these foods seem comforting. These foods seem comforting because they are giving us this dopamine. So when we feel an emotion such as stress, we reach for some chips to give us that dopamine hit, which then covers up the discomfort of the stress, right? However, when all is said and done, we still have the stress, and then we might have some guilt or regret around eating the food. So our brain also holds our motivational triad. Our motivational triad is to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy or do what's easiest. Now, this motivational triad has served us very well, right? When we didn't have grocery stores, right? We didn't have fast food restaurants, we didn't have convenience stores, and we had to maybe grow our own food, or we had to hunt, or maybe we only had access to a grocery store once a week or once every other week. And we had to supplement with a lot of foods that were made by us, right? By humans. And that seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy, that helped us have motivation to grow food, to go hunting, to go gathering, to maybe even like, I think of like my grandparents' generation, like they had little gardens and they canned food for the winter, right? So they had to have that motivation. They're like, hey, during winter, we're not going to get tomatoes, but we got this plethora of tomatoes. We're going to can these tomatoes and have them in the winter. Or even put things in the freezer and freeze them. So gather them and put them in the freezer. So, but today we have food that literally at our fingertips, and we don't necessarily need the motivational triad to keep us looking for food and seeking it out, because our food contains a lot of dopamine. It's very convenient. So when we feel stress, which is, we can probably agree that's not fun to feel, it's a discomfort, we seek food high in carbs, sugar, and fat, which provides us pleasure. So that's seeking the pleasure, avoiding the pain, right? We want to avoid the stress. So we seek the pleasure, we seek the food, and we do what's easiest. And so that's usually in prepackaged convenience foods that are most likely high in sugar, high in salt and fat. Okay. So since we're heading into the holidays, or pretty much already in there, I wanted to touch on holiday stress and emotional eating. And really the holiday season can be a roller coaster of emotions, right? Whether it's financial pressure, family dynamics, rush to get everything done, this emotional flux often drives us to seek comfort in food, which leads to maybe more emotional eating than usual. And we usually have access to those seasonal foods that only come once a year. And therefore we have that scarcity mindset around these foods, and we want to eat as much as we can before they go away. And then there are cultural and social influences. Our culture associates food with celebration, especially around the holidays. It's everywhere, right? From like at work, in the office, either potlucks or people bringing in like treats or desserts or snacks, like dinners out with friends, just holiday parties. And it's really easy to get caught up in the mindset that eating a lot during the holidays is just what you do. Like, that's just what we do. Okay. And we also tend to be at more events with rich, sweet, and savory foods, as well as alcohol. And we may feel that we just don't have enough willpower, right? There's this idea of willpower to say no or to stick to one serving and not go back for seconds. And then it also might be rude to refuse food or drink that's offered to you, right? So what do? You don't want to offend the person who made the food or who is hosting, but you also genuinely don't want to eat the food. So why do you engage in emotional eating? I want you to take a moment and think of why. Are you seeking that pleasure, avoiding pain? Like, do you feel like that brain is really taking over? Do you feel like there's more emotional eating during the holidays because of like the extra added events, added commitments, just going, not grocery shopping, present shopping for presents, right? My daughter has a lot of cousins, and we get presents for our cousins. And so it's like, we got to get that done. And we got it like, Marianne, I live in Hawaii, so if we want to mail something, it's got to be mailed fairly early for it to get there on time, right? So it's, like there's these things, right? Or maybe you have cultural and social influences where you feel pressure to eat because of your culture or social influences. Okay. So now that we have learned what emotional eating is, how to recognize it, and why we do it, let's dive into some strategies to manage and reduce emotional eating. So I'm going to talk about these, and then I'm going to talk about some holiday-specific strategies as well. So I believe I have 6 total for you. Now, what I recommend is that you hear me out on all of these. So like, hear me out on these 3, and then choose one to focus on. Okay. Because I'm giving you 3 doesn't mean you have to do all 3. I'm just giving you 3 because some might, you might be attracted to one over the other, right? If I were to just give you one, you'd be like, that doesn't really resonate with me. So I want to give you a few, figure out which one resonates most with you, and maybe something that you could start implementing. And then we'll go on to 3 more, and then you can choose one from there. Okay. So the first one is mindful eating. So I want you to think, like, how often are you fully present and aware of what you're eating?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how often do you eat while watching something or scrolling on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, I still do it, right? If I'm eating, like if I'm home alone and eating, like during the day, it's so easy to like grab my phone and like watch a video or read an article, or it's so easy to entertain yourself. But what that does is it's taking our attention away from food. So when we do this, our body is not taking in signals like the temperature of the food, the texture of the food, when we don't get the satisfaction from the food. And now one of the most effective tools to managing emotional eating is through mindful eating. So mindful eating is when we take the time to truly experience our food. Okay, we slow down, we savor each bite, we put our fork down between bites, and we pay attention to what we're eating. And we pay attention to our fullness signals, because our body has innate signals of hunger and fullness. And if we're scrolling on our phone, watching TV, doing something else, and we're not present with our body, it's so easy to eat past full. It's so easy. Okay. So this helps you reconnect to your body's natural hunger and fullness cues. And so now when work on mindful eating, I like to think of using the five senses. So taste, smell, sight, hearing, touch. What I like to like look at my food. Like if it's in front of me, look at the food, and you can even be like, okay, what am I eating today? Like I'm eating a sandwich with turkey and lettuce and tomato, and then I have a salad of, greens and cucumber and tomatoes with some ranch dressing, and then I have water. And you can even think of who grew this food, right? Who grew that lettuce that's on your plate? Who made this bread that your sandwich is in, right? Who farmed the turkey, right? So just look and see what you're eating. Maybe you smell it. What does it smell like? Usually, like with warm foods, we have an aroma and we can smell that. Is it a curry? Is it like a salsa? Can we smell it? What does it taste like? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Is it sour? Is it like umami? Like what is the flavor palette? Maybe you can taste some different spices that are in there. Like, ooh, I taste rosemary in this. Or, ooh, I taste some cilantro. And then maybe like, what does it feel like in your mouth, right? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it crunchy? Like what am I feeling in my mouth? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Maybe what does it sound like when I am chewing it? What is that sound that it's making? Okay. Now, this may seem tedious. I totally understand that. And when working on mindful eating, I encourage you just start with 3 to 5 bites, right? Sit down, look at your food, and then have 3 to 5 mindful bites. And if you keep going, awesome. But if you're like, no, I need to like turn the TV on, or I need to like do this or that, then fine, do that. But it's starting to like get you noticing what you're eating and taking in that sensation and listening to your body. Okay. So next I want to talk about healthy alternatives to emotional eating. So instead of reaching for food when you have an emotion, or you're experiencing an emotion, try alternative coping strategies like taking a walk, journaling, deep breathing. Now, activities that bring you joy or reduce stress, things like reading, drawing, spending time outdoors, maybe listening to a podcast, those can also help too. Now, I highly encourage you to plan these activities into your daily lives and start making them a habit. These alternatives will help you bring in joy, bring in peace, bring in satisfaction. So these emotions that we're usually wanting, right? Sometimes we find ourselves eating because we're not satisfied, we're not happy, we're unhappy, right? And so when we plan things and we add them into our day, things that bring us joy, that bring us satisfaction, we're less likely to turn to food for that pleasure. Okay. And then number 3 is self-compassion and balance. So I challenge you to let go of the all or nothing thinking. This is where you are either all in or all out. I'm either good or bad with my eating. And when we approach food with this mindset, we often strive to be perfect. And when we aren't, right, we're not perfect, we go all out on all the food, right? We eat the pumpkin pie, the mashed potatoes, the drinks, the Christmas cookies, all the desserts. Now, it's okay to enjoy your favorite holiday treats, but just try to do it in moderation, right? When it's not a bad thing, right? It's when we make it a bad thing that we want to do it, and then we do it and we feel guilty for it. right? I always joke that you never tell your 16-year old daughter not to date that boy that she's dating, because then she's going to want to date him even harder, right? So releasing that all or nothing mindset, looking at balance, and having self-compassion with yourself. Okay? And if you overindulge, that's okay. Be kind to yourself. Focus on balance, not perfection. Compassion will help you so much in reducing your emotional eating. Self-compassion is one of the first things I work on with clients when we're working together in reducing their emotional eating. It's like, how can I have that self-compassion? Letting go of judgment. Because when we neutralize the emotional eating, when it's no longer a bad thing, but it's telling us something, it's actually good information. Like, oh, you're emotional eating? Okay, well, what is it telling us? When we see it as a message, then we can figure out what that message is telling us and solve our problem and find a solution in another way. Okay, so what strategy resonates with you? What's one strategy from here you could implement? Is it mindful eating, incorporating those healthy alternatives into your daily life, having self-compassion, and letting go of that all or nothing mindset?
I think for me, the one that probably will help me the most in the long run will be let go of the all or nothing mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a tendency to go for too strict, and then I can eat it all.
Yes.
I look out, my 12 months go 3 months of one, 3 months of the other one, and then it's just like that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Claudia. If you'd like to share, Marianne, you can. You don't have to, but you're welcome to share if you would like.
Yeah, I struggle with the same thing that Claudia mentioned. I can be really, really good, almost too good, and then I reach a point where I don't know, it's usually on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
During the week, I work, so I seem to be more, I don't know, I consider it more disciplined, but I don't even like using that word.
Yeah.
But then on the weekends, I don't know if it's that I feel I can do I need to reward myself. I'm alone. It's my way to relax. I don't know. I don't know what happens, but once I start, I am no longer hungry. So the mindful eating, trying to recognize my fullness,
Mm-hmm.
it is probably the most important, but I don't recognize it. I'm not eating because I have a physical hunger. So I don't know if mindful eating would do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's a habit. I just go straight to starting the process. And like you said, sweet then salty, then, crunchy then creamy, then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a
And I think,
habit.
yeah, I think a good question that you could ask yourself, and this is the self-compassion and balance, is you could ask yourself, like, what am I really craving? What am I really wanting? Like, if I didn't eat this food, what
Mhm.
would I be feeling?
A lot of times it's just that I want to rest. It's the end of the day. I worked hard. I want to rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like I should rest, or I feel like and so I eat the food, so I'll feel like crap and be mad at myself. I don't know.
Yeah. So you're not allowing yourself to rest. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sometimes that's what it is. I'm not allowing myself to just sit there and do nothing.
Why not?
Whereas if I eat with something and, keep eating or going back into the kitchen and eat, and then I sit and rest, I don't know, it makes absolutely no sense. I can't even make sense of it when I say it.
And that's okay, right? This is part of the process is like just keep getting curious. Every time you find yourself reaching for the food, ask yourself, like, what am I really wanting? What am I really craving here? Right? And if it is rest, like, why don't I allow myself just to rest? Because there's probably a reason behind that, like why you don't allow yourself just to rest.
Well, it's about deserving things that are good for you, you know. I don't, that goes way back.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Right? We have to be deserving of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't deserve it. Or that maybe, like, sometimes, like, good meaning parents, they push that work ethic, but then
Yep.
it
Yep.
right? They overemphasize it. And you're like, I just have to always be doing.
Yeah. Yep. Part of that's anxiety, though. The doing helps.
Mm,
And so is it deeply more seated anxiety or I'm alone? There's times when I can stop myself and say, why are you doing this? You know, you're not hungry. You don't need to do this. Yeah, true. I don't need to do this, but I kind of want it, so I will.
mm-hmm,
And then I keep going. I'll do it next time. I'll get it next time.
mm-hmm.
And I don't.
Yeah.
And it's a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm. I would be curious about the whole like not allowing yourself to rest, because it sounds like what you want is rest.
It's
Can
not
you?
always that, though. Sometimes it's I'm alone and I'm lonely and I'm blah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
So it's not only that, but that seems to be a big piece.
Yeah. And it's oftentimes there's multiple things, right?
Yeah.
It's not just one thing, right?
Right.
But just focus, yeah, if we focus on this one, it's going to help us figure out the others as well.
Okay.
So, just noticing when you overeat, like, why am I not allowing myself to rest? Why am I not allowing myself this time to just be, right? Because we have like this be versus do. And a lot of times in our society, it's like do. The more you do, the better you are. Why can I not just allow myself to just be? Yeah. So I would reflect on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Marianne. Okay. So I have some specific holiday ways to manage your emotional eating during the holidays. And number one is holiday meal planning. So I highly recommend planning ahead for holiday meals. Now, I want to be very clear. This does not mean I'm going to a dinner tonight or a potluck or a get together, so I'm not going to eat today. That's not what I'm talking about, right? It doesn't mean restricting yourself. But it's about deciding how you want to approach food so you don't feel overwhelmed or guilty afterwards. Okay? Maybe if it's a potluck, bringing a healthier dish option to gatherings so you can, like, you have an option, like, oh, I'm going to bring, like, I love bringing a big salad, right? A nice, delicious salad with maybe some veggies, some seeds, maybe like goat cheese, and having that, because then that's available for you, right? Making sure that you eat nutritious food during the day prior to the gathering, which will help you feel more full. And in return, you'll feel in control, okay? Because when you don't eat because you know you're going to a party with lots of unhealthy food and you're like, oh, I'll just save like my calories for that. I know I'm going to overeat, so I'll save my calories. Or I know the food's going to be unhealthy, so I'll save my calories for that. You're just setting yourself up for failure, right? So include portions that include protein, healthy sources of fat, and carbs into your meals during the day. And this will help stabilize your blood sugar. And you won't be standing over like the the table with a growling stomach. That's the last thing we want, right? So how do you want to approach these holiday events? Are you going to bring something that's like something that you feel comfortable eating? You're like, yes, this will nourish my body. And making sure you eat proper meals before you go and not starving yourself. I also highly recommend taking a minute to take some deep breaths before heading into an event or a gathering. This will help you calm your nervous system, slow down your heart rate, and reduce stress. Okay, number 2, setting boundaries around food. So I want you to know, I give you permission to say no when you're full or don't want to eat something, right? Social pressure can be tough, especially if someone is used to you always eating the food that they make special for you every year. But remember, you are in control of what and how much you eat, not someone else. And I know this can be difficult, a difficult boundary to create and uphold, but ultimately you will feel so good about yourself and it will help empower you. Okay. Welcome, Sharon. So when it comes to the boundaries, like, you can say yes, but I want you to know that it's your choice to say yes to this food, right? Maybe you're like, I want you to feel like I am saying yes to this food versus this person is forcing me to have this food, or I don't want them to feel bad if I don't eat this food, right? I want it to be your choice. Okay. And then number 3, social support and accountability. So share your intentions with a friend or a family member. You can even suggest non-food related activities during gatherings, like maybe going for a walk or playing games. This can ease the focus off of food and help reduce emotional eating. So I know I did this a lot. I mean, I still do it, but I remember when I was first doing this work, as far as like I live in Hawaii, and so we have warm weather all year round. And so like, yeah, let's go for a hike, right? Instead of like a Christmas hike, and we can like dress up in a Christmas shirt or wear a Santa hat while we're hiking, right? And like still have the Christmas spirit. Or let's go walk the beach, or go for a walk in a park. So thinking of other things so it's not necessarily centered around food. Like, what are other activities you can do so it's not completely centered around food? And then adding in that accountability. So when we tell somebody, whether it's a friend, a family member, we join an accountability group, we are able, it holds us accountable, right? And we have somebody to kind of support us and talk to if we are struggling. Okay. So I want you to think just for a moment, what strategy resonates with you and what is one that you feel you could implement? Say no.
I think I would like to start using more my permission to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I usually say yes to everything, to everyone, and food that I love. So it's easy to say yes.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I totally need to start saying no to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Regarding to food.
Mm-hmm.
And also, yeah. And also what works, also, I will say that is the better I eat through the day, the less I want to go for stuff that I know I should not. But when I start my day with a bad option for breakfast or bad lunch, let's call it bad. I know that it's not bad food, but you know what I mean. Nutritional, not the best thing. So I feel like I don't have, I feel defeated already. So I'll keep going through the rest of the day. And so I think that will be good for me.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have trouble saying no,
That's
but
good.
the opposite, rather the opposite, because I give the appearance of everything being so healthy and good when I'm in front of people, I then find it that I go home and I just get by myself. I'm back at my house. I'm back alone. And then I just let loose. Hunger or not hunger doesn't matter at that point. So I don't, I can't.
Yeah, and I wonder in that case, Marianne, I wonder if a goal of yours or a challenge for you would to choose an event where you do say yes and you have, and make sure it's something you want, right? Don't say yes to, I don't know, I'm thinking like, I don't like creme brulee. Like I wouldn't say yes to creme brulee because I just don't really like it. But it's something that you would like, yeah, I really like that. And it can be as big or small of a piece that you want. It doesn't have to be this huge piece, but it can be a small piece. It could be a half piece, right? And saying yes and eating mindfully through that, using those mindful eating techniques to enjoy that food, and then and see what happens, right? See what happens at the end.
Oh, I know what happens.
What happens?
So I did it this weekend. I had a get together at a friend's house and I said, I'm going to have a little bit of chips and salsa.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Had one drink, and then I went home and had some ice cream and made a chocolate mug cake, and then I made a big bowl of popcorn. I wasn't hungry.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There was absolutely no reason to. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, in that case, that would be more of like getting curious about what's going on. Like why, like I had chips and salsa, I had a drink. Now I'm home. Why am I wanting all this food? Right? What is going on for me? What am I really craving? What am I really wanting?
So maybe the social support would work, that somebody I could talk to in a moment like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm about to go hog wild in the kitchen.
Yeah,
Stop me.
definitely.
So maybe that would, because I certainly don't seem to be able to set boundaries for myself. I feel like I let myself down a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like for you, the accountability would work.
Maybe.
Having that accountability and social support.
I actually have to run.
Okay.
So I will get the replay though.
Yep, I'm going to mail out the replay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
it was great to meet you, Marianne.
Hi,
Or see
Marianne.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Uh,
I really don't have people that will say, oh, you need to eat this or try that.
mm-hmm.
That's not an issue. I think I just have to decide what I want. One of the things I was going to make Emeril Lagasse sweet potato pudding for the sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And just loaded with cream, butter, sugar.
Yeah.
And so I decided this year I won't do it,
Okay.
at least for Thanksgiving. We'll see about Christmas. Because it is a tradition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. I love it. I love it. Awesome.
Putting more what I said.
Yeah. Well, I do have to go as well. So, just ways to connect with me: Instagram at kisa.amaro, my podcast, the Lose Your Cravings podcast. And then I have a QR code here if you want my holiday thrival guide. You can take your phone and it'll take you to my landing page, and then you just plug in your info, and then I'll send out the holiday thrival guide.
But what time did you start?
At 1:30 Hawaii time.
Okay.
Did you get, so I sent out an email yesterday and today about daylight savings.
Well, I did, but I guess I read it wrong.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, well, we just got home anyway. Well, I was home for about 20 minutes. Okay, well, I'll look for
Okay,
the
I'll be emailing out. I won't mail it out. Emailing out the replay. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Bye, Claudia.
I want to say thank you all for tuning in. It was so great to talk with you, and we will see you later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Bye, Sharon. See
Bye.
you. Thank you, Kisa.
Bye, Claudia.